clear of the closing doors, please.
All right, here we go. Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to SST on Apple Podcast app, Spotify, and on YouTube. We got some football to talk about yet again. Thanks to everyone who listened last week to my in the car, on the move, 40-minute podcast, Solo Dolo. Appreciate y'all for tuning into that one. I was surprised because I didn't know if anyone would, because I was in the car talking to myself for 45 minutes, but apparently it went okay. So appreciate y'all for that. But of course, we have here today none other than Cody O'Connor for some NFL predictions. Cody O, what's up, brother?
I'm stationary for this podcast. I can't say I'm quite at the level of on the move podcasting to where you're at, but I'm always ready to rip some NFL. A couple weeks away, fantasy drafts are coming, futures are getting narrowed down, and hopefully we'll have some more answers to some of those questions that we had a couple weeks ago.
And it is the time of questions in the NFL, 100%, because everyone's got their teams and their darlings and their loves and hates for the season. And as we hear more and more breakdown and preview of every team and everything that you could possibly bet on, it gets super muddied. And part of our goal here for Cody and I today is to run through these divisions and these teams that are kind of in play for playoff contention, and try to parse through what we believe is real and parse through what we believe in and what takes we want to kind of plant our flag on here. Because again, you're starting to think about, who's going to win that division? There are 3 wild cards for both conferences here. Who are those teams going to be? Who's the riser? Who's the faller? And it's super tough sometimes to wrap your head around. So Cody and I are here to help you wrap your head around those things. There we go. Those were words in a sentence. And by doing so, we're going to make our predictions for each division. And obviously with that, the teams in each division with the best chances at wildcard. By the time we finish here today, we will have our playoff team predictions up and down the AFC and the NFC. And even if we don't think the Giants are perhaps in playoff contention, we will touch on the New York Giants. The Jets very much belong in that conversation, as they were recently made officially the favorites of the AFC East. So Cody, before we get into specific predictions about a specific division, I just want to ask you, number one storyline or number one division, I don't know where I need you to go with this, but somewhere in the lines of which is the division, the team, the race that you are just kind of most enthralled upon going into this season?
Oof, loaded, because as you just mentioned, the Jets, that's beyond intriguing. Them overtaking Buffalo now as the favorite heading into the year, and we've said it before, but as a Jets fan, what that feels like and those expectations and being we're the favorite, and a lot of them probably being this is a franchise where bad things happen, and so being the favorite probably isn't the greatest feeling for some of them. But as intriguing as that is, I think it's been the last 2 years now to me. The AFC North just as a whole is loaded again. The Steelers probably have fallen out of that race with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields competing and no one being named the starter yet, which usually tells you a little bit. But all the noise about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and the health over there, and Cincinnati, and obviously Baltimore, who is coming right off where they were and added a little bit, and Cleveland is that ferocious defense that has another year of Deshaun and whatnot. So a probably more of a 3-headed than 4-headed, but I think that's one of the most up for grabs divisions in around the football league.
And with that being said, you can't forget that the Steelers were in the playoffs. Right? They still were there. They were still right in the mix at the end of the season last year with how horrible they looked, how horrible they statistically were, and they still did not have a losing season with Mike Tomlin. So what's going to give? Nothing? Or are the Steelers going to finally fall on their face? That's there's kind of seemingly not a lot of in between here. It's going to be the first losing season, and Russell Wilson's going to stink, and Fields is going to stink, and finally Tomlin will come down to earth, or they're going to win 9 games again, right? That's just it's those two options. They're not going to win 13. They're probably not going to only win 4, but are they going to go under 500, or is Tomlin going to Tomlin? So even you said there's a 3-headed monster, it's still kind of a 4-headed monster. Would you be shocked, Cody, if the Steelers were 9-8 and snuck into a wild card, maybe based upon record, but what?
I mean, based on how they looked last year, like they had no business being in the playoffs. And I remember very well, Pete, that they were in the playoffs because that was one of the futures that I actually did hit was them to make the playoffs, which was like of all the picks that I took and all the ones that I say won or lost, like that felt the most wrong of the outcomes. It felt like an incorrect outcome, and I was happened to be on the right side of it because it looked just downright gross at sometimes, but they found their way, and that's what Tomlin is and has always been. So hard to completely count them out. I agree with you there.
Yeah, and I think I'll go to the other North just to kick it off. Like the NFC North is now a team, a division full of players. I mean, the Lions are the favorite, the Packers are the darling, and the Vikings don't suck. It's kind of that simple. It's like the Vikings might be okay. They might be a Steeler-esque team of the other side. Like they, again, comes back to coaching, right? Like everyone loves Tomlin. Everyone loves, oh my God. I was just about to give him a big shout out because I think he's a good coach. And now I can't think of the Vikings coach.
Oh, I thought you were thinking of the Lions. Now I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh my
goodness. Is it the guy from, it's not Flores, no, right?
No, he's their defensive coordinator though, who is a very good defensive coordinator. O'Connell? What's wrong with me? Whatever.
I don't even have it in my head. I keep thinking of Pat Shurmur, so I know I'm wrong. I know.
Okay, yeah, it's Kevin O'Connell. There we go.
Okay, I'm not fully in football mode. Just a quick disclaimer note. Not all the way there yet.
I just got like a total brain fart. I was about to give this guy a huge compliment. Kevin O'Connell, who made like Josh Dobbs relevant for a little bit last year, who still put a good offense out there even after Kirk Cousins got hurt. The team competed after Kirk tore his ACL. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to suck. So I think they're super intriguing, and none other than the Chicago Bears. I think they're a very intriguing team. So I'm interested in NFC North as well. But that goes to show we went AFC North, NFC North, just of an intrigue standpoint. We have crazy intrigue in the AFC East, crazy intrigue with the Cowboys and the Eagles in the NFC East. You're looking at the AFC South where everyone's writing off the Jags and writing up the Texans and the Colts. A lot of stuff is about to happen, and we didn't even touch the West, right? Like, there's so much to talk about, and now we get to get into all of it. So with that being said, Cody, let's start off with the division that you called out. Let's start off with the AFC North. And again, we're going to go through our division predictions and then also kind of put the teams that are maybe second or third place in those divisions into a bucket to decide on who those wild card teams are as we move forward as well. So let's run through the odds really quickly. On the AFC North front, the Bengals and the Ravens are currently neck and neck with plus 145 apiece to win the AFC North. The Browns plus 550. The Steelers are plus 800. But with that being said, you also have the Steelers at just plus 185 to make the playoffs. You also have the Cleveland Browns at plus 145 to make the playoffs, with the Ravens and the Bengals well into the minuses, minus 260 for the Bengals and minus 260 as well for the Baltimore Ravens. So 4 teams with pretty decent odds to make the playoffs. Let me hear your take. You kind of bounced around before what you're thinking. So when you think about the AFC North and who you like to win it, where does your mind go first?
To win it, it's kind of chalk, but I think it's Baltimore. And the thing is, I mean, last year I kind of went all in on the Bengals as my futures. I took them to win the Super Bowl. I'm a huge fan of Joe Burrow and still am. But I'm really nervous about the reports I keep hearing about his health and how he's not yet really practiced even like 3 consecutive days all training camp. And maybe that's nothing, but it's not. It doesn't seem like nothing. It doesn't feel like nothing. The reports out of that camp don't feel like the team I want to go back all in on. And so grain of salt with taking Baltimore. It's not a division bet that I'm going to touch really in any capacity. Maybe if I do, like a fun 8-legger and I have to choose one, but it's probably those two in my opinion. I think both are playoff teams. And I think so long as the Bengals are healthy, my kind of thought process for futures this year might be in some of them to wait a little bit, 3-4 weeks before I decide to take my Super Bowl winning team, futures along those lines, because I really want to see what Joe Burrow looks like. And if I see, okay, this is the guy that was, neck and neck with Pat Mahomes and battled him, and they were calling it Burrowhead for a while, right? If that's Joe Burrow, then I believe that team, even if they don't win the division, can make another deep playoff run. So the division's usually a toss-up. Ravens typically take it, but I would lean towards them to take it if you have to bet on it. But personally, not something I love either way.
And that becomes the big question mark. And I apologize. The rain seems like it's billowing off my wall right now. If you can hear that on the mic, I apologize. But the Bengals do have the luxury here of that last place schedule, right? So as we get into the predictions for this season, we start to think about strength of schedule, which isn't the be all end all, but we use it as a guideline. Like last year, you looked at the Falcons and the Saints. They had the two easiest schedules by an absolute long shot in the NFL. And the Saints couldn't do anything with it. They lost games they were supposed to win. They won games they were supposed to lose, and they did everything in between. The Falcons were kind of very similar in that sense. The Falcons have the easiest schedule again, but the Bengals have the sixth easiest schedule based on Vegas win totals in the league. So the Bengals are up there with an easy schedule. They came in last place last year. They were even better than they should have been without Joe Burrow last year. So it kind of goes to that infrastructure, to that coaching staff and what they were able to accomplish. I think the defense was disappointing last year for the Bengals, but how much of that is the layover from the offense not being as good as it always is, right? So all these moving parts come into fruition. With the Baltimore Ravens, they have the fourth hardest schedule in the NFL, according to Vegas win totals. So they're 29th out of 32. The Steelers have the hardest. The Browns have the third hardest. So somehow the Bengals losing last year could have been the biggest blessing they've ever gotten going into 2024. I think that alone maybe leans you a little bit towards the Cincinnati Bengals. And also a big thing you got to mention with the Baltimore Ravens, losing Mike McDonald, their defensive coordinator from last year, is huge. That defense was amazing last year, one of the top in the league, without incredible talent, right? Like they had their game breakers. They have Kyle Hamilton. They lost Patrick Queen. They're losing some pieces, but the Ravens seem to always be a good defense, basically, no matter what. So do you just trust in the organization, or do you think the losses are too much from their personnel and their coaching staff? I have this kind of like blind belief in the Ravens to compete. And I think, you and I are similar on that front.
Agree. Yep.
This is a division to me that I'm going to pick both of them to make the playoffs. And when it comes down to choosing one to win the division, my heart tells me to go with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, but my head is telling me Joe Burrow, Bengals, year from hell last year. This one works out better. T. Higgins still in the building, playing, not holding out. That means something. Defense a little rejuvenated. And again, you get 17 games of Burrow and you're winning, I think, 11 games. That's where you're at right now with those weapons. Even losing Joe Mixon, that doesn't bother me at all. So I'm going Bengals to win the division. Is that what you said as well, or did you not make a final choice?
I did say Ravens. I do lean them, but ultimately what I feel much stronger with saying is exactly what you said. I said it too. Both of them to make the playoffs. I feel strong about that. I don't feel strong about taking either one of those two to win the division. I think it's a battle that goes, whoever wins 11 or 12, that's the winner.
And now say you're going long shot. Would you even consider in a super long shot, like $5-10 bet, throwing a Browns plus 550 or a Steelers 800, or like you think it's a two-headed race for the division and all of them have a chance to make the playoffs?
I don't think it's insane to think that the Browns can win that division. That was a damn good football team last year. They had, Joe Flacco taking them, game after game towards the end of the season. So if you believe anything in Deshaun Jackson, he's going to run the ball. He'll probably go on a fly route sometime this year and catch a 60-yard bomb from somebody. But Deshaun Watson, if you believe in Deshaun Watson, then you have enough to believe that plus 550 is worth throwing a half a unit or so on.
Yeah, again, that's super long shot. I think it's pretty much a two-headed race for the division win, but I will not sit here shocked in any regard if the Browns or Steelers are itching at 10 wins. I'm just not going to be shocked. And I know Wilson Fields is going to be kind of a shit show at different points of the season. And I'm done blindly going against the Steelers because their numbers are bad. And I don't like how it looks when I watch them because they consistently don't make sense. Right. So why am I going to sit here and think this year is going to be different? Tomlin's going to be okay with losing. It's not going to happen. They're going to play dumb games. They still have a very good defense. They're still going to cause a ton of turnovers. And we're going to be pissed when we think that the line is wrong and the Steelers are like 2.5-point favorites, and we take the underdog in a teaser, and the freaking Steelers win by 14 because they had 2 pick sixes. Like, it's going to happen again. And like, I don't know. I'm not betting them in any way until I, get to see it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a whirlwind. I learned that last year. I learned that 2 years ago. I know you were on board with the Vikings 2 years ago. Was a whirlwind. Last year, the Steelers were that roller coaster. Like, I just want to get off this ride.
Yeah, I'm off the ride. All right, let's move on to the NFC North, the next one that we talked about. Then we'll pop over to the AFC and NFC East just to get our little hometown teams mixed in there. But let's go NFC North because I think it's a great one. I've been talking about it a lot already, Cody. I've spent 2 podcasts now, at least 2, a portion of it on the Packers and Jordan Love. So I'm going to let you go first here, but let's go through the odds really quick. NFC North, you have the Detroit Lions as the favorite, pretty heavily at plus 130. Packers plus 230. The Bears have been inching up to plus 280, and the Vikings plus 1100. So that's a pretty, thoughtful spread, I guess, with the Lions being a heavy favorite to win that. And then to make the playoffs, you have the Lions at minus 245, which is obviously very big favorite to make the playoffs. The Packers minus 155 to be in the playoffs, which puts their not making the playoffs at plus 125. And then you have, if I can find it here, where is it? The Bears at minus 110 to make the playoffs, and the Vikings at plus 300. So, Cody, what are your thoughts on the NFC North?
I'll say this. I am going to discount the Vikings. I'm just going to say, I don't believe that they're going to be within this race. So we're down to 3. The Bears are obviously very exciting. They added a ton of weapons to go for Caleb Williams because a lot of guys get drafted that, first overall. You typically don't have a lot around them. You were the first overall pick for a reason. That's typically how it goes. But because they get that from Carolina, they've quietly been building over there. DJ Moore had a really nice season last year. They brought over DeAndre Swift. They brought over Keenan Allen. They drafted Odunze, right? And so they have weapons around Caleb Williams, who has been the consensus number 1 pick for 2 straight years. So there's a lot on his shoulders. It's going to be exciting because they have a pretty damn good defense too. So on paper, one would think that the Bears are right in contention for this division, but one, I guess I have to see a little bit, especially with the rookie quarterback. It is hard to go into a season betting on a rookie quarterback, even though obviously we just saw CJ Stroud. It's just hard to do. So I guess it's more or less between the Packers and the Lions. And once again, I am with you in the sense of I just can't get so there, even though Jordan Love kept proving it time and time again. In the playoffs, he had good games. In the games that led up that were playoff-like games, he was playing fantastic and making off-platform throws, back foot throws, and kind of looking very Rodgers-esque. And now those receivers have another year around them, but it's hard to get fully there to a point where I think that they're going to win the division over Detroit. So I am going to take the chalk pick, the plus 130 Detroit Lions. I think they're just loaded with weapons. Last year was a bit of not a scratching the surface, but like a coming out party. And now I think Detroit is kind of here to stay and to be the mainstay up in the North. So Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, all those weapons, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, they've got them. I think that they're going to win the division. Plus 130 is the Lions, and that's what I would go with.
It feels like such a good bet. I'm totally with you on that front. We'll get into the second and third team there because I agree. The Vikings, who I think will be friskier than people may believe right now, but not frisky enough to compete with the other 3. Just kind of one of those teams that will get a good upset every once in a while, kind of put up some numbers. I think Justin Jefferson will continue to be fantasy relevant, and all this stuff is good. It's all positive for that front, but they're not winning more than 6 or 7 games, right? So they're kind of out on that front. I agree with you on the Lions, and I will not reiterate much other than the fact this team is not built on smoke and mirrors. This team is not built on luck or turnover luck, injury. To an extent, some injury luck. They got a little bit of that, but nothing crazy. They're built on a great offensive line, great weapons, a solid quarterback, decent defense, and a good head coach. And when you put those things together, plus 130 makes sense. Favorite to win the division makes sense. And a mainstay in the playoffs, at least for now, makes a ton of sense. So I'm not going to go deeper into the Lions. Where this gets interesting in the NFC North is the Packers and the Bears. So, Cody, with you hearing my take, let me just quickly sum this up in case anyone hasn't listened to the last 2 episodes. I'm not ready to go ahead and put the Packers in a top tier. I'm not ready to chalk Jordan Love in year 2 as a starter to be a top tier quarterback. Call me crazy. I made it very clear in my last 2 podcasts and my social media posts at Subway Sports Talk. I thought he was going to be a bust. I was wrong. He's not a bust. But I am not here to put him at number 6 in the league as a quarterback, even number 8, number 10 just yet. I'll make the case one more time for everyone who hasn't heard it yet, but I'm getting tired of saying it already. This time last year, people constantly forget what happens every year. It's like we all have amnesia and we never learn one year after the next. This time last year, Trevor Lawrence was a golden boy. The Jaguars were a lock to win the AFC South. They were a runaway to win the AFC South. And what did Trevor Lawrence do the year after he impressed a lot of people? He came down to earth. He still threw a decent amount of yards. He still threw over 20 touchdowns. They were down a little bit. His picks were up a little bit. Couldn't move the ball. Wasn't winning late. Little worse injury luck. Little bit of a coaching regression. And Trevor Lawrence now is in the dumps in people's mind. Why do we think that Jordan Love's progression will be completely linear? When last year, it's not like he set the world on fire and went 13-4. They went 9-8. And I know they started off slow and they got really hot and he ended on such a high. I get it. I get that they have weapons. But I also get that they lost Aaron Jones, who was a monster in the final portion of the season when the Packers were on a roll. They lost John Runyon, who's a very good offensive lineman. Their defense was terrible last year. They were giving up deep passes left and right. They were very inconsistent, and their defense has not improved that much. They got rid of Joel Berry. All these people are thrilled in Packers world. And apparently they brought in the Boston College head coach, who wasn't even a good coach at Boston College. So why are we so confident? I'm not confident in the Packers. I'm ready to be wrong, but I am ready to be right. And I know that's not the best take in the world, but it's exactly how I feel. If Jordan Love goes out and does it again, I'll be the first one to say I was wrong again. I already admitted that I thought he was a bust, and he's clearly not. But I don't think he's a top 8 quarterback in the league yet. And I think everyone who's counting them as this top tier offense, this lock to be electric, this lock to have 3 fantasy relevant players and Jordan Love fantasy relevant and being this guy he was last year, I think it's too much. It's too fast, too soon. You look at what happens with bad throw percentages and turnover luck. They were great with turnover luck last year. Jordan Love was top 6 in the league, or I guess bottom 6 in the league in bad throw rate, right next to Trevor Lawrence, right next to CJ Stroud. We'll get to the AFC South in a little bit. It's not unheard of for these quarterbacks in year 2 as a starter to kind of trickle down back to earth. All this more film on them, all these more thoughts on what they plan to do to be effective. We were all sitting here blown away last year with the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love hitting these deep shots, consistently pushing the ball downfield and being impressive doing it. Well, guess what the defenses were trying last year? To take away the easy stuff because they didn't trust him yet. Guess what they're not going to do this year? Let him throw the ball all over the yard, 30 yards downfield. It's not going to be that easy. Now, I don't think the Packers suck. I don't think they're going, 5 and I can't do the math with the 17 games anymore. 5-12.
I'll never get it.
Right? They're
not on the first try, at least. Not on my first thought.
It takes me a second. Like, they're not going to be 5-12, but I'm not ready to say they're going to be an 11-win team. So I think the Packers are not a playoff lock. I am happy to say they're not going to win the division. And until he proves me wrong again and is at that other level again, I'm not buying it, Cody.
I have to ask, and I think this question's kind of for me too. Like, what point is it that we say, okay, he is a top 10, even if it's 10 or 11, say, because I saw a list by Orlovsky today that illustrated 9 who we called elite quarterbacks, and I thought all of them were better than Love, and he said he left off Hurts and Love were like honorable mention types. And so say 10 or 11, right? Say there's 11, and we go, all right, he's bona fide, he's somewhere in this top 11. Like, when do we get there? Is it like week 5 and they're 4-1 and we go, okay. Like, does it take longer than that? If they start out 2-3, are we, hey, I was right? Like, I'm kind of asking for both of us right now because we're in a very similar thought process. But what's he need to show? Because he did look really impressive week after week after we kept not taking him, and he kept proving us wrong.
To me, it takes half the season. It's got to be week 8, week 9, and he's still right there doing his thing. And it doesn't mean they have to be, 8-1. They can easily be just above 500 or even 500 if they're playing good ball. It takes throwing touchdowns still on a consistent basis, because there were a few weeks mixed in there last year where they lost 3 in a row and they couldn't move the ball, and all of a sudden, oh my God, wait, maybe it was smoke and mirrors. And then Thanksgiving came around and they went off on Thanksgiving, and then all of a sudden, like, he went on a rampage, right? So it takes longer than 4 or 5 weeks to me. It takes 7 to 9 weeks for me, because we've seen too many quarterbacks make those runs into the playoffs. We've seen too many quarterbacks have a great year 1 and a meh year 2, and then maybe trickle back up in the right direction, right? It's not linear. Even Daniel Jones, Cody, I know it's a joke now, and I'm a little bit more down on him, but you're not like up on him, right? You're very, I think, mid to low on him.
Not high on him, no.
Yeah, you're not high on him. But 2 years ago, or I guess last offseason, after the playoff win, everyone's like, hey, maybe Daniel Jones is closer to 10 than he is 20. Yeah, I think, you know what? I think he is closer to 10 than he is 20. When I was arguing the season prior, like, nah, he's still probably 15 to 20. It's okay. That's still solid for him. But people were arguing, he's maybe he's 11, 12, 13 range. And now where does he rank? 29th? Like,
that's how quick it happens. But yes,
it happens
and
so
he got hurt.
fast. He got hurt too, and he was bad before he got hurt. But also with Jordan Love and the Packers here, now you're paying Jordan Love. Soon, all these receivers that everyone loves so much, right? Watson, Dobbs, Wicks, Musgrave, the tight end, like, everyone's liking them. They gave Josh Jacobs a couple dollars. They had to pay the defense a little more. It doesn't get easier when you pay the quarterback, and that's the luxury they didn't have. They didn't have 3 years of cheap Jordan Love. They had 1 year of cheap Jordan Love. And that little leash that you have when your quarterback's cheap is awesome, because if your quarterback's not amazing, you go, well, he's only worth $6 million this year. When he's worth 55 average annual salary, makes it a lot different. So I got to see it for half the season, Cody, before I will admit anything. Now, granted, if he's 6-0 with, 18 touchdowns and 2 picks after 6 weeks, then yeah, sure, maybe I'll tighten it up a little bit. But that's really what it comes down to for me.
Very fair. And the context would matter. Like, you're right. If they're 6-0, you're not, where no one should be like, well, Pete said he's going to wait half the season. So he really shouldn't be commenting just yet.
Yeah. And let's move on to the Bears now. So we'll get to our prediction for those teams later. And obviously when we pick our wildcard teams later on here, the Chicago Bears, similar to the Packers last year, in my opinion, have a plethora of weapons. They have a young quarterback in his first year as a starter. They have a defense that I think is better than the Packers defense, and they have a decent offensive line. Cody, am I crazy to think the Bears can finish higher than the Packers this year?
No, I said it before, like, they're talented. They added a lot around Caleb Williams, and again, that's very unique for a first overall pick to come into. Typically, that's a quarterback we're talking about. But it's just, it's the Bears, and that has to kind of make you wary. Just like you're talking earlier about believing in the pedigree of Baltimore, sometimes it does go the other way around. And we know that as fans of teams like the Mets and, for a long time, the Knicks, right? Jets, so it's the Bears and it's a Bears quarterback and all that. But on paper, it makes so much sense. And if Caleb Williams is even, like, say, to use Bill Simmons here, like an 80% of what we were led to believe he is, then there's no reason to think that they're not a playoff team. And the odds show you that they think that they're right there to be minus 110 says, we believe that this team has an equal chance, essentially, to make or miss the playoffs. So they are right there. And Caleb Williams' rookie year, like, for the Bears organization and fans, this is, like, unprecedented. They're like, we might have a really good offense. What is that? They don't know what that is. They haven't seen a 4,000-yard passer in their history, which is still insane to me, but they haven't seen it. So they're exciting and one of the bigger storylines. So definitely one to touch on singularly like we just did.
Yeah, they're playing with a little bit of house money because they're not expected to win division. There's not a hype of like, oh, if everything hits, they will win the division. Whereas the Packers have a hype. If it goes well, they're going to win the division and be a Super Bowl contender. The Bears thing is if it goes well, they're a playoff contender and we'll see what happens. And it makes a big difference, right? Like you're going in expectation, like you're probably not going to be favored all the time. You're going to be give or take a couple points here and there. And you have this rookie quarterback who's arguably the most exciting prospect in the league right now. I think for good reason. I'm super pro Caleb Williams. I am ready to plant my flag on Caleb Williams Island and say, here we go. I see from this guy great poise, great confidence, but doesn't take himself, like he takes it seriously and not himself too seriously in a way. Like I see a composed leader. I mean, Hard Knocks is Hard Knocks. It is what it is. But you see a guy who everyone seems to be happy to be around, a guy who seems to be rallying the troops, who's ready to try and understand what it takes to be a leading quarterback. And I feel that all to be positive, and you mix that in with the arm talent, the extending of plays, the off-platform stuff that looks really, really good. I am so ready to see an offense for the Bears that's actually consistently dangerous. I was just saying to a friend earlier, you think about what was happening with CJ Stroud last year, and he was throwing the ball deep a lot. Jordan Love throwing the ball deep a lot, really pressuring the defense with the deep passes. Makes it a lot easier when Nico Collins is out there, when you got a Watson Dobbs a mix in Green Bay, when you got some playmakers and you got DJ Moore, who's a bona fide stud, in my opinion, and now Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze and Cole Kmet, you got options, man, and you got the ability to not baby Caleb Williams because so many rookie quarterbacks come in there. All right, don't make any mistakes. Take what the defense gives you. Think about this, do that, keep it simple, don't turn it over. And I think the Bears are going to say, yo, let's ride. Send the ball downfield to DJ Moore. And I think that's going to be a positive for the Bears. And I think with the rest of their team being better than we expect, I like them a lot to make the playoffs this year. A lot.
Could we be hearing of a possible Pete future right now?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. We'll save it for the wild card predictions at the end here, but yes, absolutely.
Love it.
Let's go. We will have the Lions for the NFC North to win, just for the record. Let's go to the East. AFC East first to start. We got some great intrigue here with the more dominant of late Buffalo Bills not being the favorite. The Jets are plus 165. The Bills are plus 195. Dolphins plus 205. That's a major cluster of three very good teams. And obviously the Patriots way down the barrel at plus 2,500. In regards to just simple playoff odds, you have the Dolphins at minus 155, the Jets minus 175, Patriots plus 900, which, makes a ton of sense. And then the ever interesting Buffalo Bills minus 175. So first and foremost, Cody, do you agree with the odds here? So I think that's the first time we could truly ask that question. Do you agree with the odds for the AFC East?
Yeah, for the division odds, I think they're pretty spot on. I mean, the Jets can't be a heavy favorite, but I agree with them being favored because all you have to go off of right now is paper. What does each team look like on paper? Nobody can put too much stock into preseason, and it's not like the Jets were rolling out Rodgers anyway. Did he even play at all? Did he play a couple
in the
snaps?
Preseason? No.
Yeah, so I know he didn't play against the Giants, but that was week 3. Anyway, it's all based on paper, and the Jets are loaded on both sides of the football. I don't think we have to do this again. I know both of us have broken this down. They have guys absolutely everywhere, and they've got Aaron Rodgers. And the question is, how are they going to handle the pressure? Rodgers has obviously handled it in Green Bay. It's always different in New York. We always talk about the difference of the pressure in New York, and now they are the favorite going into the season to not just make the playoffs, to not just sniff around, to win the division in the AFC East, which when's the last time the Jets won the division?
I don't even think they won it when they went back-to-back AFC championships. So it must have been like early 2000s.
I'll get research. I'll get the research department on that. Like Alyssa. No, so I'm going to look that up because I have no idea when the last time the Jets won the division. But that's the expectation now coming into the year. Like that's a big ask. And there's more questions, I think, than answers in Buffalo. But the one answer is Josh Allen. And he is, outside of Patrick Mahomes, the second best quarterback, I think, consensus in the league. I would still personally take Burrow, but I know that I'm probably in the minority in that take right now. He has more to prove after last year with the injury and all that. So to me, it's and I can't fully buy into Miami still. To me, Pete, they're, to use an NBA metaphor here, to me they're kind of like the Sixers. Like I'm not going to get burnt on a team that I just haven't seen do it. And when it gets cold and it gets tough and it's defense travels, the run game travels, and they tried to add, they had a good run game, but it felt too gimmicky. It felt too much like, yeah, when they get into space, this team's unbelievable. But when you bottle them up, if you're able to, then you could really stop. And the Chiefs just completely outclassed them in the playoffs. So I think most people are probably down on them. But I do think the odds are fair, right? I know that's the initial question I roundabout answered, but I think they're pretty good.
Yeah, the Dolphins had an explosive run game, but not a grinder run game, if that makes sense. Like, they were still ripping off monster runs left and right, and Mostert had all the touchdowns, and Achane, when he played, we know what he did. But it's not like they were ready to roll out 5 yards a pop and just grind out crazy yards. Their yards per carry were so crazy because they were ripping off 40-yarders all the time. I think the odds are right. I'm a little bit paused here, Cody, because I think the Bills are discounted a little bit here. And it's partially as like the incumbent, best team of the division. And then other part is Josh Allen. Like you said, when we talk about Jordan Love, we talk about Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence and even Dak Prescott, you can have a range of like 7 or 8 spots on your quarterback ranking, and people can argue either way, right? Like, if you said that Dak Prescott was the 5th best quarterback in the league, you can make that argument. If you said he was the 12th quarterback in the league, you can make that argument. With Josh Allen, you're arguing that he's number 2 or number 3. Like, maybe you want to argue he's number 4, go ahead, knock yourself out. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a number 2, number 3, or number 4 quarterback in the league. We're not talking about Tua, who has people ranking him at 8 and 18, right? Like, that's the difference. So Josh Allen is that guy. And I know Diggs is gone and Gabe Davis is gone and all the targets are gone from Buffalo last year. Well, you still have the guy who punches it in more than anybody else. Josh Allen does it himself. Josh Allen is a goal line weapon. And that's why you get nervous about his running backs in fantasy. And that's why you don't get nervous about Dalton Kincaid this year, right? And who's going to step up? Are you ready for Khalil Shakir to be your go-to flex in fantasy? Maybe not. But are you ready for Khalil Shakir to break the defense open a couple times every couple weeks? Yeah, I think you are, right? Same thing with Keon Coleman. You ready to play Keon Coleman in fantasy every week? No. But if he goes up and mosses somebody week 1, yeah, that's expected. So to me, the only question is, why are the Jets favored over the Bills? But then again, like we all talked about, the weapons the Bills lost, all the heartbreak that they've dealt with, are they still ready to go toe-to-toe for a full regular season? I don't know. But I'm trusting. Let me break it down like this, Cody. I think it's a better bet. I'm not talking odds here. I'm just talking in general. A better bet for the Bills to make the playoffs in general than the Jets are to make the playoffs in general. But I understand why the Jets are favored to win the division. It's a ceiling floor conversation. The Bills' floor is the highest in the division still to this day. But their ceiling might not be as high as Aaron Rodgers at an MVP level. So that's the breakdown for me. I trust the Bills the most. However, I understand why the Jets do technically have a better chance to be better. If that all kind of works out and makes some sense there.
Yeah, so quick cleanup note. 2002 is the last time the Jets won the division. So
wow.
Over 20 years. And here's the other thing, and I love Rodgers as much as anyone, but it feels like everybody is just assuming that you're getting MVP Rodgers. It does feel as if that's the Rodgers we're all talking about. And not to say I think, I'm predicting the fall off the cliff or anything like that, but his last year in Green Bay didn't really look very good, if we remember correctly. He didn't look exactly like, and granted, the year before he won the MVP, and the year before that he won the MVP. He was back-to-back, but that last year in Green Bay didn't look terrific. He's north of 40 now, correct? And he's coming off an Achilles injury, so it's not crazy to think, hey, the Jets still might be good, but they might not hit their stride for a couple weeks. They might not hit the ground running when Rodgers hasn't even played a preseason game. OTAs is great. Inter-squad practices, that's all great. He's still Aaron Rodgers. I get all that. But in what you're saying, to me, if you are taking a division winner here, again, one that it's too much of a coin flip for me, but I would probably take the Bills at slightly better odds and say, hey, I'm going to take the second or third best quarterback in the NFL. And I'm going to, if I'm going to be wrong, I'll be wrong with that guy, not the 40-plus-year-old quarterback who is coming off an Achilles, which, again, it just doesn't feel like is getting mentioned when you're talking about the Jets. It's all the hype. It's all the positivity. But there's still that part of it.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you here. So right now we have 2 out of the 3 predictions the same. I'm taking the Bills to win the division. I broke down why I think the odds make sense. But when I start putting my money into the apps, I'm banking on Josh Allen. I am banking on the quarterback I've seen do it time and time again. And I know Rodgers is or was that guy. We don't know if he is that guy yet still. So I'm with the Bills. Is that your prediction, or did I jump the gun?
It is. I want to ask you a quick question off it. I just thought of it. So we said, we probably lean towards the Bills to win the division. I'm assuming you still think the Jets make the playoffs. Is that correct to say?
So my next question, or my next point, was going to be very much so you start thinking really quickly. So we already mentioned that we like
AFC, right?
We like the Bengals and Ravens to both be playoff teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think we both like a couple teams in the AFC East. And then you look at the West, which we'll get into, with the Chiefs and the Chargers. And you look at the South with the Jaguars and which people are out on, but the Texans and the Colts and all these teams everyone's starting to think about. Can you like the Dolphins, Jets, and Bills, Cody? If you're being a reasonable NFL at large talker like we are right now, are you even allowed to like all 3 teams? Because it seems like it's impossible for all 3 to make the playoffs.
I'll break it down this quickly. I think you can like one division's 3 teams. You can like the AFC North's 3, or you can like the AFC East 3, but I don't think you can like both. Well, obviously you can't like both because that's too many teams. So one of them is out. So that's the way I would see it. Is you could, and I would lean towards the AFC North's 3 over, say, the Dolphins.
Yeah, weirdly, I think the cop-out would be to pick the Jets or the Dolphins to win the division and the Bills to be a wild card team. I think that's the cop-out, weirdly. I think it's almost a hotter take to say, yeah, the Bills are still going to be very good. I haven't really heard anyone come out here and say the Bills are winning this division. I haven't heard it. And I'm not listening to every single podcast and reading every single article, but I'm damn sure listening to a lot of it. And no one's saying, yeah, the Bills are a shoo-in for 11 wins, 12 wins. I'm not hearing it. Everyone's like, yeah, they'll still be around, but I think they're going to fall down a little bit. But the volatility on the Dolphins and the Jets is just too much for me. You almost have to just pick one and commit to it. Whereas the Bills, I think, are more of a shoo-in. I probably will lean the Jets, but we'll make the decision when we get to the wild card stuff.
All right, when we get there, I'm going to have one more question for you that's Jets and Bills, but we'll get there.
Okay, cool. NFC East, let's go through those odds as well. Probably a 2-horse race by most normal people standards for who's going to win that division. You got the Eagles, who are bigger favorites right now at -125, Cowboys +170, Commanders +900, and the good old New York Giants at +2,000 to make the playoffs. It's tough, right? +2,000. My Lord.
I'm looking at it, but hearing it out loud just hit differently.
Just to make the playoffs, you got the Eagles at -250, the Giants +400. You got the Cowboys at -210, and the Washington Commanders are not even given odds. I'm just kidding. They're +260. All right, so let's just do the Giants quickly, Cody, for our Subway Sports Talk loyalists here who want to hear about their Giants a little bit. They're not winning the division.
Nope.
They're probably not making the playoffs.
Probably not.
What do we expect here? What do we think about with this New York Giant team right now?
I mean, I know I said it a couple weeks ago, but nothing's changed. And it's still to me that they can actually be a decent team if Daniel Jones is an average quarterback. The question is, do I believe that Daniel Jones, off that injury, is that average quarterback? And if you were able to watch the first half of that preseason game against the Texans, you're probably not too convinced that he is the 2022 version of himself. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's just, I don't know that he has it, and he really shouldn't be granted it either, because it's been, 6 years and 7 years, whatever, since he's been drafted. And I mean, it's been so weird with him. 2022, such an aberration. He gets the contract in the deal, in the terms of the deal. It's really a 2-year deal with a team option, right? So it could be his last year this year. But then last year, when you're like, all right, let's prove it again. Like, let's back up what you did. And he gets hurt. And so he like buys himself probably a little bit more time. And so here we are. And it's him. It's on him, because I do believe – and the line, because no matter what, I'll still always question the offensive line. But they have some more weapons around him. They drafted him a wide receiver 1, which continues to impress and look good. I think the defensive line is the best one we've seen in years coming into the season, which typically can hide some of maybe the more flaws in the secondary. But I do think there's somewhat enough around, not to win the division, but to be that sneaky competitive team. But it's only if Daniel Jones is a 15 to 17 to 18-ish quarterback in the NFL.
So let me ask you this question before I give you my thoughts. Their over-under is 6.5. Mm-hmm. The under's minus 135. Do you think it's more likely that they go over their alt over of 8.5?
Okay, and win 9 games.
Which win 9 games, which would put them truly in that playoff contention, or go under their alt under of 4.5, which is plus 240. So plus 240 for under 4.5, plus 300 for over 8.5. So the odds say it's more likely to go under 4.5 than over 8.5. But what does Cody O'Connor think?
Despite it all, I think it's more likely that they win 9 games than it is that they win only 4, because, and we've said this before, they usually win weird ones. I don't think anyone will be surprised if they beat the Vikings week 1. And then if you're looking at it that way, you're like, all right, there's only 3 more to go. So I would say I lean more that they would win 9 games over losing, quick math, 13. Yeah.
There you go. That was very quick.
Yeah, but I had to say quick math just to mask the fact that I was thinking about it.
We'll get there in like 2027.
They'll change the rules again by then. It'll be 18 games. And
at least that's an even number, though. It'll make it easier.
That's true.
I agree with you, because the Giants are stupid. That's what it comes down to. They're dumb, and some of it's in a good way, some of it's in a bad way. They haven't done a good job bottoming out. They have competed in ways that you're proud of, but also annoyed by, and I expect more of the same. If they go in and the Washington's clearly a better team than them all year and still beat Washington twice, it makes sense to me. It makes sense, Cody. I'm sorry. It just is what the Giants do. So again, 6.5 is probably the right number. If I was making it myself, I probably would make it 7.5, because I think 8 wins is within reason. Probably too many people would go bang the under, because I think 7 or 8 is 7 or 8 is just their number. Like, I'm confident over 6.5. Obviously not confident over 8.5, but they have better weapons. Their offensive line should be better. And like you said, that defensive line is very good. And you also got to give Brian Daboll some credit. Winning with smoke and mirrors sometimes. Like, as we talked about Mike Tomlin, I'm not comparing them yet, but Brian Daboll has a way of giving his team a chance. Like with Tommy DeVito, he's afraid to let Tommy DeVito throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field, and they win a couple games. Like, it's not a terrible team. I think the fact that DraftKings thinks they're more likely to go under 4.5 than over 8.5 is wrong. That's wrong to me. So yeah, that's the Giants take. And we got to like almost move on from that. We'll do a full Giants and Jets preview at some point next week, probably. All right. So on to the NFC East. I went through the odds already real quick again. Eagles minus 125, Cowboys plus 170, Commanders plus 900. It really comes down to the Eagles or the Cowboys here, Cody. Do you have a lean on the division for those two squads?
I got to be 100% honest. One, I think this is the weirdest division going into the season, because I don't know what to even make of Philadelphia. I think they're the best team. I don't know. I don't know, because it feels like we mentioned with these quarterbacks year to year, Jalen Hurts just went from a bona fide top 5 to is he even in the top 10? That's where it feels like we're at with Jalen Hurts right now. The Cowboys are a walking question mark. One less question mark because CeeDee Lamb just got his contract extension today. But there's a lot of people down on Dallas, and a lot of people kind of sneaky, not high, but like believing in Jaden Daniels and what the Commanders could be. Like, I don't think they're just an afterthought. I think you mentioned plus 260 is to make the playoffs, I think that's right. That's a sneaky. I'm going to take a look at that. I might look at it twice. So I do think it's obviously we said it's not the Giants. One I prefer to stay away from. Eagles at -125, Cowboys +170. Flip a coin to me. I really don't have the greatest feel, and gun to my head, I'll say Philadelphia maybe wins 10 games and wins the division.
Well, I'm glad that you said Philadelphia because, Cody, I'm ready to put my stake on the Dallas Cowboys to win the NFC East this year. I'm ready.
I love Dallas, dude.
It's so stupid. I don't know why. So here's the thing. Here's what I'm about to say right now, and it kind of bounces off one of your points here. And I used Dak Prescott as an example earlier, how people can say he's like a top 6 quarterback and also say he's a top 12 quarterback. That's not what I think. I'm just saying what the greater zeitgeist of NFL people think, that they have that type of range. You just mentioned Jalen Hurts' range. He was a top 5 bona fide last year. Now he might not be in people's top 10s. People also worried about Jason Kelce. People also worried about him and Nick Sirianni not getting along. Now you're paying all these folks. You're paying A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Saquon Barkley. You don't have Kelce anymore. What's going to happen when the going gets tough? Jalen Hurts getting paid now. It gets a lot harder. I mentioned this last year with the Eagles. That window starts to go a little closer to closed. And I really believe, even though the Cowboys are in a similar financial position now to the Eagles, I trust Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys to be a good regular season team. I don't trust them in the playoffs. Obviously, that's well documented. They're not a good playoff team right now, and they're guilty until proven innocent, not the other way around. But in the regular season, they are innocent until proven guilty. They're walking 10 wins. They're walking offensive numbers left and right with Dak Prescott at the helm. They lost Kellen Moore. I don't care. Mike McCarthy's a disaster. I don't care. This Cowboys team still has enough talent. They still have a dog top 3 wide receiver. They have a quarterback who regular season alone, in my opinion, is pretty bona fide in that top 6 to 8 range. I trust them more than the Philadelphia Eagles this year to win those 12 games, to beat who they're supposed to beat. Whereas the Eagles, the way they ended last year, is a major, major sour taste in your mouth. The way Hurts kind of finished the year out, major sour taste, paying all these people, losing Kelce. It's going to be tough. Is Kellen Moore going to lift this offense so much? Possibly. Might make them look better. I don't think the Eagles are going to suck. I think they're going to have to grind a lot more than they expected to. And even last year when, they were winning, and what were they? 9-1, 10-1 to start the season. It was a slog to win those 10. And then they sucked for the second half of the year. They were bad. They lost like 6 out of 7 to end the season. So I don't trust the Eagles right now. I think these odds are completely off. If you're talking odds, by every mean possible, you're taking the Cowboys +170. But if you're saying the odds are even and you're just picking a division winner, I still trust the Cowboys to be a good offense with enough playmakers on defense to be a better regular season team than the Eagles.
Again, I don't feel super confident. Just quick peek. The Eagles do have the easier schedule, ninth easiest schedule in the NFL. Cowboys got 22nd, so it's a decent enough gap to think about, to look into, but it's by no means an end all be all. It never has been, especially with what I look at. But I guess when you're doing, to me, it's a coin toss, right? So when you're kind of trying to split hairs, you have to look at small things. That strength of the schedule could be like all right, well, you know what? If I'm this close, I'm this even on them. Just a generalization of if you're making picks. Maybe that's something that can help in that regard. But I think this is, I said it to start, this is the weirdest division in the NFL this year. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if any of them are good, but I also wouldn't be completely shocked to find out that like 3 of them are good, 3.5 of them even are good. So it's just a weird one that I don't have great answers for just yet.
And I totally get that. It's tough. I think Commanders, like Jaden Daniels, I'm excited about. I think they could be a fun, mediocre team instead of like an annoying, bad, mediocre team. Fantasy relevant players. I think that's a good thing. Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels, already drafted him once. Might do it again. But yeah, I don't trust them to like make a playoff run or make the playoffs, I should say. Mm-hmm. So 260, a little bit, a little interesting. Look at it
something
twice.
Something to look at.
Probably won't look at it 3 times. All right. Let's move on to the West. We'll jump to the AFC West, and we'll talk about the odds there. Chiefs minus 260, Chargers plus 350, Raiders plus 1,000, Broncos plus 2,200, just to make the playoffs specifically. And now, of course, I lost my page here, so I have to go through it and really look for it. Okay. Chiefs minus 600 to make the playoffs. You have the Broncos plus 600 to make the playoffs. The Chargers plus 110, which is right there on the even front.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, you have the Raiders, who are plus 300. So can we just argue really quick? Are the Chiefs winning this division, Cody? Are we going to stick it there? Are we going to say that really easily?
It's this simple. You take minus 260 on the Chiefs, and then you find your next most confident division winner, which I've yet to find as I scroll up and down and even talk about it. But you don't even look twice. You just parlay it with the Chiefs minus 260.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, perfect. I'll say this as
It's just a cup.
Cup falls over.
It's empty.
I'll say this about the Chiefs
now.
Still have Mahomes, still have Reed. That's a win. Their defense was very good last year. That's a big reason why they won the Super Bowl. They still have Kelsey. They added Xavier Worthy. They added Hollywood Brown. They might have Rashee Rice for the whole season. Maybe not. We'll see. But they still have him for a portion. And they still have Isaiah Pacheco. They're very good. Their offense might be better. Their offense probably will be better. Because if you remember correctly, it wasn't that good last year. So the Chiefs' offense looking better. Their defense still very good. Still have Mahomes. Still have Reed. They're the favorite for a reason. You pick them like you said. Is there even an inkling of a chance? Is there a long shot bet for $10 that includes the Chargers to win this division? Plus 350.
Absolutely not. There's to me, and I know you're a slight Chargers guy. It's just like don't bet the Chargers to me because I think what you'd be looking at is them to make the playoffs, and you're like, oh, I got them at plus money, and that's kind of like, oh, like I got plus. For some reason, we all think like plus 110 is so much better than minus 105, which it's not, but it feels better, right? But I know Harbaugh's there, but they lost all of their weapons around Herbert, and Harbaugh's a fantastic coach. Excellent at the college level. He was really good in the NFL too. If your argument starts with Harbaugh, I'll listen to it. But other than that, I just really can't hear it out because when you're talking about making the playoffs, we went through those divisions. There's just too many other good teams. I think the Dolphins are better than the Chargers. I think the Browns are better than the Chargers. I know the Bills, Jets, Bengals, and Ravens are all better than the Chargers, and obviously I've already mentioned the Chiefs. So the AFC West is the Chiefs, and they'll be the lone playoff team in my opinion.
I think you try to buy the Chargers into next year. There's no way to do it from a gambling perspective, but Harbaugh bump will show itself. I think the Chargers will be a more enjoyable team to watch and less dramatic and less annoying to bet on because they'll be a little more consistent for better and for worse, right? Like for better and for worse, they're going to run the ball better. They're going to commit to the run. They're not going to ask Herbert to throw the ball a million times and put his life on the line to keep them in a game. They're not going to do it. Harbaugh will make this team better. The actual results of him and Coach Harbaugh's, powers will probably come to fruition next year is how I feel. Herbert is here to stay. I have faith in Justin Herbert. I think he's a great quarterback. I really do. He's also dealing with a foot injury right now and dealing with Josh Palmer as his main receiver who's returning from last year. So that's difficult. Lab McConkey, people like him. Is it enough to move the needle for the Chargers yet? I like Gus Edwards. I know Gus Edwards. I like J.K. Dobbins if he's healthy. I don't know if he's going to be. They'll be better. They'll probably be on the outside looking in. What they do have the benefit of, though, Cody, is they do get to play the Las Vegas Raiders. And they do get to play the Denver Broncos a total of 4 times. And that, my friend, is a good thing. Because the Chargers have they have the second easiest schedule in the NFL. Right? So if you start looking at the path for them to make a playoffs, it's there. It's around. I do, however, think.
Oh no.
No, I don't know. I haven't made the wild card prediction yet. I think they're a little bit further. I think they're a year away. Add one more weapon.
I'm seeing like Stranger Things as the vortex or whatever is like grabbing your leg in and they're pulling you out. They're putting the headphones around you. If you watch Stranger Things, like they're pulling you into this vortex, Pete. Be careful.
Hear me out.
I'm listening.
All right. Week 1, Raiders. 2, all right, hold on. Home against the Raiders. At the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
At the Steelers. Home against the Chiefs. At Broncos. At Cardinals. Home against the Saints. I mean, listen. There's decent teams in there. They can lose to anyone. But they could also beat the Raiders, Panthers, Steelers, Broncos, and Cardinals, and Saints.
But like only the Chargers can do. They can go beat the Chiefs and lose to the Panthers. Like they are 100%. Just the
they
best.
Lose to Bo Nix and beat Patrick Mahomes.
Just when you think, oh man, like if I don't know, I don't remember every team you said in order, but the point is like once they get you, they bring you back, and maybe though, just maybe. Jim Harbaugh does change that. It's not the craziest of thought. That's why, again, if your argument starts with Harbaugh, I'm going to listen to it. But almost anything else, I'm probably going to be dismissive on the Chargers.
All right. We'll wait until we get to the wild card at the end there to hear if we end up choosing, or I should say if I end up choosing the Chargers, because I think you made it pretty clear.
I'm not.
All right. NFC West, a little more intrigue there, a little more competition going on in the NFC West. The Niners are still big favorites, though, but there's some interesting teams. Niners minus 195, the Rams plus 350, Seahawks plus 650, and the Cardinals plus 1,300. On the front of the just making the playoffs, you have the Niners at minus 525. You have the Seahawks plus 180, Rams minus 110 to make the playoffs. And last but not least, the Arizona Cardinals plus 300. So for the worst team in the division, plus 300 to make the playoffs, not too long of odds. What are the thoughts on the NFC West, Cody?
That I can't buy into the Cardinals just yet. If they prove me wrong, it wouldn't be the most shocking because Kyler's obviously so explosive and they had Marvin Harrison. So there's some reason to believe, hey, they can move the ball. Maybe they could be frisky. Can't buy into them. Seahawks, I didn't really love them going into last year. I know people did. I don't know. There's something I just can't get around with this team, with Geno, and I don't know. I just can't fully get there. I do like Jackson Smith and Jig, but I do like Kenneth Walker. Obviously, they've got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and Geno's proven to be something of a formidable quarterback, but I can't fully get there. So I'm at a two-headed race with this group, and the Niners minus 195 makes sense to me. If you put it at minus 250, it wouldn't shock me, which almost makes me think minus 195 is almost trappy because I think the Rams are good. I know we kind of went out on a limb around this time last year before the season, and unfortunately in the 74 futures I made, I didn't include them, which bothers me, but the Rams were kind of our darling.
We were right.
I agree.
We said they were going to be frisky good, and they were totally frisky good because people thought they were going to suck last year.
Yeah, and the whole point was if you have that quarterback, that head coach, that top wide receiver, neither of us are sitting here saying we called out Puka Nacua coming, but did believe that Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Sean.
You got it. He's only the most known coach in the league. Come on, dude.
I'm gonna vouch. McVay. I had Mick Avery in my head, and I'm like, that's certainly not it.
Sounds like a hockey player.
I think I've combined 4 names. It's not even terribly late. I don't have a real excuse other than being dumb. Anyway, Sean McVay and Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp, the thought was they're really just gonna suck. And now you go into this year, you've got a healthier Cooper Kupp. You seem to have a healthier Matt Stafford. Yes, a year older, but a healthier Matt Stafford, an established Puka Nacua. You've got a running game. You got Aaron Donald still over there, so the defense can't be that bad. They're frisky
he's not.
enough.
Sorry, I hate to cut you off there. He retired? He retired. Yeah. If you want, I'll cut that out of the podcast, but maybe I'll just leave it in.
No, it goes.
You messed up McVay's name, and Aaron Donald didn't retire. What are you doing?
It's right on brand with the whole being dumb thing. It's all coming into full circle. So they yeah, okay. Well, they don't have Aaron Donald, but whatever. The point really was never about the defense anyway.
Who even cares about Aaron Donald, right?
Yeah. Salary cap's not real, and neither is he. He was unbelievable. Anyway, it's a two-headed race. I do lean the Niners, but as I talked before about just, hey, take the Chiefs minus 260 with your next favorite. The next obvious one is the Niners, and we talked a bit about it pre-show. It's going to get you plus 109 on DraftKings to combine the Chiefs and Niners to win their division. Sounds way too easy and way too good to be true. So that part alone kind of makes me think, could the Rams sneak this division out? Like the odds more than exactly what I think of each of these teams on paper. But you got the Ayuk thing. McCaffrey is always an injury risk. Is it crazy to think that the Rams can steal this division?
It's not crazy. It's crazy to bet against the Niners.
Agreed.
That's where it's crazy. Like when we're sitting here and not taking odds into consideration for just our playoff predictions, it's nuts to not put the Niners at the top of this division. But if you're looking for value, you're looking to catch lightning in a bottle, you're absolutely not crazy. Because like you said, the McCaffrey calf thing is scary. Like some people aren't taking him in the top 3 in fantasy when he was 100 points better than the RB2 last year. Like even if he misses 4 weeks and then plays the rest of the fantasy season, he will probably still outperform every running back in the league from a total perspective. That's how good he is at fantasy football. And people are getting nervous to taking him. Maybe they're making the wrong decision. So no, it's not crazy to think so. The question just becomes, is the Rams or the Seahawks? Because I think when you think about the Seahawks now, love me some Pete Carroll in my life. Really do. Probably the most memorable college football team in my entire life with his USC teams with Reggie Bush. And some awesome, memorable Seahawks teams in our life with the Legion of Boom and Russell Wilson. It was time for him to go. And they bring in the guy who just led the Ravens defense to an incredible season. And they have Geno Smith, who's decent. They have weapons on offense. You know, top tier running back, in my opinion, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, another year of Jackson Smith and Jigba. They got weapons. They got some talent on defense. They got McDonald, who's a fantastic defensive coach. I don't know, Cody. I think you could chalk up the Seahawks or the Rams to get to that 12-win mark possibly and push those Niners. And maybe if the Niners fall down, maybe it only takes 11 wins to get there. So, yeah, I think it's not crazy. I think with the exercise we're doing, I'd be nuts to not say the Niners are going to win this division. But if we're looking for value and catch lightning in a bottle, not crazy at all. So I'm taking the Niners, but I'm nervous, just like you said. And the fact that the Niners and Chiefs parlayed division winners is just plus 109. Wow. How could it possibly lose, Cody?
It's terrifying how easy that feels. It makes you want to put Francisco Alvarez money on it, but I learned my lesson. I'm not doing that again.
All right, let's move on to the South divisions here. Let's start with the AFC South and the odds for that. Texans plus 105, pretty heavy favorites with the Jaguars at plus 250 and the Colts at plus 340, Titans plus 1,000. To make the playoffs in general, you got a mishmash of odds here as well. You got the Jaguars sitting here at plus 130. You have the Texans at minus 190 to make the playoffs in the AFC. You have the Colts at plus 140, and you have the Titans at who cares, but they're plus 425. So AFC South, a little bit of a intriguing division here that has the people talking. Cody, what do you say about it?
Second weirdest division coming into the season. NFC East is my number one. This one's super weird, but I can't keep doing this whole I don't really know. I got to answer some type of question. So
come on,
I'm going chalk, and I think the Texans are the best team because I think CJ Stroud is the best quarterback. Anthony Richardson has way too much to prove for me to be let me sink my teeth into plus 340 Colts. The Jaguars have found too many ways to lose. Trevor Lawrence has found too many ways to lose. They lost Calvin Ridley. Am I right about that at least?
Yes, you are.
He's a Titan?
Yes.
You know what's funny? Before, when you said J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, I was like, we're not on the Ravens, are we? And I was like, oh my God, they're both Chargers?
Yeah,
I knew Gus Edwards.
They're both Chargers.
But I forgot, not even forgot, I don't think I ever knew. I'm not fully there. I told you at the beginning, I'm not fully there.
That's fine.
Anyway, I still think Von Miller's playing for the Rams. So anyway, I think it's the Texans. I think it's their division. CJ Stroud it didn't seem in any way fluky with him. And if you're nervous about maybe Stephon Diggs with some chemistry, that doesn't scare me that they brought over a super talented receiver to go along with Nico Collins and Tank Dell and some of those guys over there. I mean, and again, everything about Stroud last year looked for real. It looked like this calm, cool, under control quarterback who could make all the throws but doesn't really make mistakes, yet still forced the ball when he needed to. It did seem like it all came together in a way that in no way it didn't feel gimmicky. It felt like that's who CJ Stroud is. That's the quarterback I want to back. So maybe I just talked myself pretty heavily into the Texans and the AFC South at plus 105. Maybe it's not that weird.
I'm really torn about this division. I don't think the Colts win it, but I do think the Jaguars are getting written off way too fast. I think Trevor Lawrence is getting written off way too fast. And this goes back to the Jordan Love thing. I don't think Jordan Love's going to fall on his face and suck. I didn't think Trevor Lawrence absolutely sucked last year. I thought he was disappointing. I thought he didn't live up to the year before. I thought also Doug Peterson giving up play calling to the offensive coordinator, Press Taylor, was a disaster. I thought that his receivers were not that good last year. And here's the big one. People think this doesn't matter, but I'll tell you why it matters for two reasons. Christian Kirk missed a lot of time last year. Christian Kirk's not incredible. Christian Kirk's a very solid, I'd say above average, but not like incredible wide receiver, right? Is that fair to say, Cody?
He was a fantastic value pick on my fantasy team last year. I followed him pretty closely. He's a very solid receiver, and I thought he got paid what felt like handsomely, what now looks reasonable. He's a good receiver.
What his arc was like a great middle of the road second or third receiver on the Cardinals, gets paid by the Jaguars. Oh my God, he's so overpaid. What a joke. And then was great for the Jaguars 2 years ago. And then was very, very good for the Jaguars until he got hurt and missed week 14 through 18. The biggest games of the season where the Jaguars went 1-4, where they lost the playoffs because of that. And even he left that other game in week 13. He left it early. He had one catch and then got hurt. And they lost by 3 to the Bengals, right? So realistically, if you count him missing most of that other game, they went 1-5 down the stretch without Christian Kirk when they were, 8-3 before that. They were in line to win the division. Christian Kirk coming back opens up everything for them. And equal parts, Stephon Diggs joining the Texans. I don't care about the chemistry crap. It doesn't bother me at all. Him being with the Texans now gives them the answer to the one thing CJ Stroud struggled with last year. He wasn't great in between the numbers, like short range, mid range. He was great at getting the ball downfield to Nico Collins and Tate Dell and Noah Brown for that couple week stretch. He was awesome. CJ Stroud, I love it. Love him. Adding Diggs makes that intermediate stuff so much easier for CJ Stroud. Really, now that defenses expect Stroud to push the ball down the field, what's the answer? Stephon Diggs, 10 yards a pop. That's huge. Christian Kirk going down for the Jaguars last year was enormous. It's more important than losing Calvin Ridley this year is getting Christian Kirk back. And the LSU receiver who now, of course, I'm freaking slipping on his name, even though he's on my fantasy team. So I'll pull it up right now. Brian, Jesus Christ, this is a horrible look.
Thomas?
That's okay. Yeah, Brian Thomas
Jr.?
Yep, thank you very much. Brian Thomas Jr. He's one. There you go. One for Cody. That's 2 L's for me, too. I forgot the Vikings coach earlier. But Brian Thomas adding to this kind of fills that Calvin Ridley role, and he's an even better deep threat where Calvin Ridley's more of an intermediate guy. Kirk being back is huge. So it's hard for me to make the argument that the Jaguars are going to win the division because what I just said is a positive for Trevor Lawrence getting Kirk back is also a positive for CJ Stroud getting Stephon Diggs. So it's a little bit of a tear-up situation for me making my decision. But in the world of progress is not linear, I am ready to say the Jaguars are winning this division. I rode them last year to a fault. I had them to win the division. I had them to go alt over their win total, which I think I had at like 10.5 and 11.5. They clearly didn't do it. They were on pace to. They ended up 9-8. They were 8-3. Like I just showed out. When Kirk got hurt, they stunk. They lost 5 out of 6. I think the Jaguars are being completely undervalued. I am happy in the odds makers that they have them as the second favorite in this division because I think the Colts need to prove something, and Anthony Richardson needs to play more than 4 games to be proven anything. So I'm actually saying, Cody, the Jaguars are winning the AFC South plus 250. I love it. I think the Texans are in that mix to make it through a wild card team, but I think that Lawrence proves himself again to be the quarterback we thought he was, or at least close to it. And once again, year over year, we will come into next season saying Trevor Lawrence, top 5 quarterback, when we thought he was last year, then he wasn't good, and now he sucks, and then he's good again because people are stupid and they can't commit. I'm committing to Trevor Lawrence. he's a really good quarterback, and he's going to prove it this year.
Yeah, I had them last year as a future to win the division with the Chiefs,
Crushing.
like I said. And it felt great. They were 8-3. It felt like it was over. But then weirdly, I remember they all combined because I had the Steelers to make the playoffs. So I think the Jags losing enabled the Steelers to go in or something. So it became something of a wash. But I watched them closely, and I wonder if that's maybe why I'm a little bit down on them, because I got burnt last year. And that happens. Emotions, they're a thing.
Absolutely. All right, let's go on to the last division here, NFC South. Really quickly through the odds here, we have the Falcons minus 130, Bucks plus 320, Saints plus 400, Panthers plus 1100. Is there a worse division to predict in football right now, Cody, than the NFC South?
Can I tell you
Worst for last?
What I did last year, hilariously, because the Panthers were out, and preseason I took the Saints. I think you did too. I remember we both were like Saints and Jags, if I remember correctly. And at whatever point I hedged with the Falcons at plus money. And the whole time I kind of like weirdly liked the Bucks. Like I would back them weekly to like cover spreads and stuff, but didn't overly take them seriously, I suppose. And then they came in. So talking about hard to predict, it was narrowed down to 3 teams, and I took 2 of them and was incorrect. So,
and it feels like the same thing this year. I mean, seriously.
Minus 130 Falcons, does that feel crazy to you?
It feels insane to me, Cody. It feels insane. You look at strength of schedule, and the Falcons are like off the chart as the easiest schedule.
Yeah.
Like they're like, if you look at Sharp Football Analysis and you see their little graphic they have, like the Falcons are all the way up in the top left corner, and the number 2 team is like the difference between Falcons at 1 and Chargers at 2 is the same as Chargers at 2 and like Bengals at 6. Like that's how big of a difference the Falcons schedule is. It's so easy.
Yeah, but the Bucks are 11th easiest, Panthers 10th, and the Saints 5th. So it's not like the rest of the division has like the 25th, 28th,
Right.
So it's not that
Well,
crazy.
it's easy because they all play each other, and none of them are that good.
So I guess that plays a huge part. But if the Texans are plus 105, should the Falcons have leapt that far? I know they added weapons. I know they added Kirk Cousins, obviously, and last year they felt very quarterback away with Bijan Robinson and some of the weapons and the defense looking good. But to leap to minus 130 either says there's no belief that the Bucks can repeat that and that was just some magical run, or that they really believe in the Falcons to essentially win the division by 2 games.
Yeah.
I think that's too much. And so I'm telling my hand, because obviously I'm not taking the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
And I refuse to allow Derek Carr to dictate another season of mine. I can't watch that team not move the ball or just dump it down to Kamara on 3rd and 6, and then again on the next 3rd and 11. And I can't do it. So Baker, moneymaker, move the ball, push it down the field. I think I'm going to say that the Bucks win the division. And I think it's worth that sprinkle because I just plus 320 feels way too high. And even if you like the Saints, I just think minus 130 for the Falcons has gone too far.
Mm-hmm.
Baker.
Yeah, I like it. And this is the worst division to predict. Like you look through the Falcons schedule and like, yeah, it's supposed to be the easiest schedule in the league. Steelers, Eagles, Chiefs, Saints, Bucks, Panthers. It's 50-50. Half of those teams are pretty damn good. Half of those teams kind of suck. And the Falcons are so dumb, they'll beat the Eagles in week 2 and lose to the Panthers. Like they're so dumb too. Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, they rivaled the Chargers, right?
Yeah, like, and as good as Kirk Cousins has been statistically in his career, he's dumb too. Like
he is.
He'll go out there and go toe to toe with Dak Prescott, and they'll both throw for 450 yards and lose, and then he'll throw 2 picks and Bijan Robinson will run wild, and they'll beat the freaking, someone else who's good. It doesn't even matter who I'm talking about right now. They have some easy games. The difference is for the Falcons, I think their schedule is super easy at the end of the year. All their tough games are early. So I think where you get the value, Cody, is you let them kind of lose a couple games early. Maybe they start the year 0-3. Steelers loss, Eagles loss, Chiefs loss. And then the odds all of a sudden are in the Bucks or Saints' favor. and then you get the Falcons to win the division at plus 200 or something like that in week like 4 or 5. Because, I mean, seriously, look at the end of the schedule here. Once you get to week like 13, it's Broncos, Chargers, Vikings, Raiders, Giants, Commanders, Panthers. No one's scary there. They can lose to anyone, but no one's scary. So I think I'm taking the Falcons to win the division, but I don't like it at all. And I think to bet them, you don't bet it now, and you wait and hope they got 1-2, 0-3 to start, and you jump on them later. They are minus 215 to make the playoffs in total. So that comes down to it, I guess, as well. All right, that's all the divisions. To run through it real quick, Cody O'Connor, AFC divisions, Ravens in the North, Bills in the East, Chiefs in the West, Texans in the South, Lions in the NFC North, Eagles East, Niners West, Buccaneers South, and I got Bengals North, Bills East, Chiefs West, Jaguars South. NFC, we got the Lions North, Cowboys East, Niners West, and Falcons in the South. So, Cody, toughest part probably happens now. Wild card predictions. I don't know if you want to go 3 in a row for the AFC, and we'll go from there. Or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, let's do it that way. All right. So I got the Bills to win the division. I have the Jets as first or second wild card. If I got the Ravens to win the division, then the Bengals are the next wild card. And I'm just going to do it quickly. I think that the Cleveland Browns are the third and final wild card spot. I think the Dolphins and Chargers are probably hovering around and competing, but it ultimately goes to Cleveland. In the NFC, much, much more difficult in my opinion.
Here, I'll give you a second. Let's do the AFC first.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll
Go
do
ahead,
mine.
please.
And I'll give you a second here. I think I'm going to go. Oh God. So I know. All right, I'm just typing up the answers now. All right, so for my AFC, I have the Bengals winning the North, so I got the Ravens in my first wild card spot, and then I'm going to go with the Houston Texans to get the second wild card spot. And last but not least, Cody, I'm going to shock you here. I'm doing it. I'm going Los Angeles Chargers, third wild card spot. I'm going Harbaugh. I'm going Herbert. Harbaugh and Herbert. Harbort? Something like that. Got to combine those somehow. The Chargers are going to shock people. They're going to play a real brand of football that is sustainable. It makes sense. It'll be consistent. And Herbert is the best quarterback of the rest. When you talk about Rodgers at this point in his career and Tua and Deshaun Watson, I'm betting on Herbert and Harbaugh. And I'm ready to do it. I think they're going to be sneaky good this year. I think they're going to run the crap out of the ball. Even if J.K. Dobbins isn't healthy and Gus we trust, I'm riding Gus Edwards and I'm riding Herbert. And I think they have just enough weapons. Josh Palmer, Ladd McConkey, sure, why not? With Herbert, you got it covered. I like the Chargers, Cody. I'm doing it for my third wild card.
I feel kind of like Interstellar, like McConaughey banging on the glass. Anyone who doesn't get that, Breaking Bad, Walter White banging on the glass, screaming. But I mean, it makes sense, but they just always do. And you know what I will say though? I'll put it this way: at least you're going to bet on a team who's going to be able to move the ball. There's nothing more infuriating than having like the Charge or the Saints last year type of team where it's like, oh God, I got myself into this mess, and then I tried to get myself out with Atlanta, and I ended up in a bigger mess.
Yeah, it's true because you're right. With Herbert, you're not really that worried about it at all times. And at last year, like everyone knew that their coach was a weakness. Everyone knew it. And now you're bringing in a proven coach and a proven coaching staff. And yes, they don't have the talent on offense. They don't have Eckler. They don't have Allen. You could argue Eckler and Allen and Mike Williams. You could argue Eckler and Allen are over the hump. You could argue Mike Williams is more of a detriment because he's always injured. So at least you now know what you're getting into. Quentin Johnston's a disaster most of the time, but you never know. Maybe year 2 he figures something out. The one team I do feel the worst about leaving off here, and maybe by the end here I'll sub him back in, but I feel bad leaving the Jets off. I think the Dolphins are as much as a toss-up because of, one guy.
Wait, so who, can you rename your 3? I'm sorry.
Ravens, Texans, Chargers. So I'm going 2 out of the AFC South. I am. And like only 1 out of the AFC East. I feel bad about the Jets because they're so freaking talented. And I do actually end up being a pro Jets guy more often than not.
Yeah.
Their defense is so freaking good. I'm really torn not having the Jets in here. That's my toughest out right now. And I might, by the time we do NFC, I might change it, but I don't know.
So really quickly, because funny enough, but my question from earlier was going to be if they did both make the playoffs, Bills and Jets, who would you feel more comfortable with saying could make a deeper postseason run? And to me, I actually think the Jets are more likely to make a postseason run. Like they might be clicking by that point. Where I actually think the Bills, I already said, I have them to win the division. So I don't think it's crazy to think the Bills win the division, yet the Jets are in the AFC Championship game. But obviously, I guess you're not quite there. You're kind of there.
I'm really on the fence on the Jets. Yeah. I really am. I might end up taking the Texans out. I might do it.
Yeah, you got time before the graphic goes up.
Yeah, that's right. Let's do NFC. What do you got for me?
All right, so I definitely have – I think the Packers are going to make the playoffs again. And I think the Rams are going to make the playoffs again if the Niners win that division. And the third one's a toss-up between – I guess it's really Dallas, Atlanta, and a sneaky Chicago, and with maybe the Commanders on the outside looking in. The chalk pick is Dallas, but chalk is so boring. Give me the Bears. Let me see Caleb Williams throw it, push it down the field. Keep Dallas out somehow. Maybe even if the Dallas wins and the Eagles are out. But I could see the Bears. It makes so much sense. They're waiting for it, ready to explode. Caleb Williams, from what I've heard and seen, it just feels like he is for real. The weapons are there. I think they could do it. I think they can win 10 games. 9, I think 9 maybe gets you in, but 9 or 10 games and is that last wild card spot.
Wow. Packers, Rams, and Bears. I have the Cowboys to win the NFC East, so I'm going to just chalk the Eagles up to the playoffs. I even with my negativity on the Eagles, their floor is too high still, I think. So I think that no matter how you skin it, and I know you don't have this, but I think no matter how you skin it, the Cowboys and Eagles are in the playoffs. Then for my final two, I kind of know who I think is going to be the last one. And I'm curious, like I'm still stuck on who's going to end up being that like big riser who makes it into the second spot. To me, it's not the Packers. So I'm just going to say Bears. This is kind of out of order because I do think the Bears will end up being the third wild card, but that's okay. So I'm going Eagles and the Bears make the playoffs as well, which crazy that you and I both have that. And then last, I am between the Rams and Seahawks and the Packers, right? The Rams, Seahawks, and Packers is what it comes down to. And I'm going to go with the Rams as well. I think the Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua factor is enormous. I think McVay is as energized as he's ever been. And like you said before, Stafford being healthy is huge. I think the defense wasn't really that good last year, and they kind of withstood that. So I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. Donald obviously is such a massive loss. But I think that the offense is just going to be ready to shoot out and, just bang with any team in the league. Stafford near MVP conversation type stuff out of Matt Stafford with Kupp and Nacua. It's going to be awesome. And Kyren Williams and Blake Corum as well. McVay is going to be on his A game. I'm putting the money on McVay and the Rams. So I got Eagles, Bears, and Rams. That's it.
Heck yeah.
Cody
football.
O'Connor. Is there one team that's killing you that you don't have in the playoffs right now?
No. I mean, it's not killing me that I've kept Dallas out. I just think they're the obvious, this is going to look stupid when they win their, 8 of their first 10. But no, in the AFC, I think the toughest one was probably Miami. In the NFC, it's it was between Dallas and the Bears, and I wanted to have some fun.
All right, I'm doing it. Texans are out. Jets are in.
It killed you.
Texans are out. Jets are in. Ravens, Jets, and Chargers are my final 3 picks. I have to be consistent, Cody, and progress is not linear. I'm not out on Jordan Love. I'm down on Jordan Love. I'm definitely not out on CJ Stroud. I am in on CJ Stroud, but I'm too in on this Jets roster. I think they're too good top to bottom. I trust Aaron Rodgers to a fault. I know I want to see it first, which is why I almost left them off, but I can't do it. The Jets with the 4th easiest schedule in the league, the Texans with the 26th ranked schedule in the league. That's the tiebreaker to me. The tiebreaker is slight down to earth for Stroud and the tough schedule for the Texans and the cupcake schedule for the Jets, and Rodgers is back. I'm going Jets. That's it.
Love it.
All right. Cody O'Connor, P. Kennedy, Subway Sports Talk. That's all we got. Any last words, Code?
I think we hit all the words. I'm
So many words.
excited that football's back. DraftKings is probably less excited because of how I've been doing in baseball, but
You mean more excited?
No, DraftKings is less excited because hopefully I'm going to actually win some bets this time because baseball's been just brutal. It's so mean. It's taking years off my life. So pumped for football to be back.
There we go. I love it. Me too. I can't wait as well. So that's all we got. Subway Sports Talk. Thank you for listening and watching as always. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. We appreciate you the same. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, drop your comments in the podcast, in the YouTube section, in the social media post, all that fun stuff. I'll try to make a fun little graphic for Cody and I to get shredded in social media fashion. Can't wait for it. So that's all we got. Subway Sports Talk. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.